hopefully you all remember the lovely artist Sarah Coey and her beautiful rainbow-tastic artwork from last week. We are going to be continuing our color wheels and adding these dabs of color just like you see in Sarah Coey's work. We are going to be creating tints, which are a color plus white, and we are going to be adding some shades, which is a color plus black. So you will get to choose which colors become tints and which colors become shades. I hope you enjoy this part of the project. Make sure you really pay attention so you see how to create this.
Hey friends, just like you saw in Sarah Coey's artwork, we are going to be adding dabs of colors on top of our color wheels. So we want to stick with the color that we are given right over top of that same color. So I have the magenta here ready to be put on top of my magenta pizza slice. So now you are going to also be given an egg carton that has whites to make our tints and blacks to make our shades. So you're going to turn 3 of these colors into tints and 3 into shades, and then it's up to you which color belongs to either a shade or a tint. So I'm going to kind of go with a pattern of every other one. So for my magenta, I think I'm going to make some nice tints. So when you get this color at your table, whatever color it may be, remember the brush should be in the pie pan. You're going to take a scoop of the paint, and you want to only have to scoop this once because you don't want your dirty brush, whether it has white or black on it, to go back in this container. That is a big no-no. So please make sure to get a nice big scoop of paint, and then you're going to either bring it into a white or a black, not both. So now that I have this into my white, I'm going to swirl this around and make myself a tint. So if you only got a little bit of pink, you'll have a very light tint of pink, and so be it, because you cannot re-dip in there. Please do not do that. So try to get a nice scoop of the color. So now that I have my pink, you'll want to wipe the excess paint off on the side because you did mix with that brush, so it's going to be loaded with a lot of paint. And just very carefully adding some dabs of color right over top, and I'm going to get a little bit more spaced out as I go. So there's my pink. So now I'm going to go and work my way around, doing this with each color, alternating from making shades and tints. Maybe you want to make all of your tints on one side and then all of your shades on the other side. So maybe all the warms will have a tint and all the cools will have a shade. That's up to you how you decide that you would like to do it. Make sure when you are done with your brush that you put it back in the pie pan. Depending on the color that the people used before you, that brush might already have a tint or shade on here. So what you might need to do is clean that brush off on the placemat. So if you have some time, maybe you can clean it for the next person. So wiping it off on your placemat and then setting it inside of the pie pan. So that way we don't mess with the color that they chose to make. So before I mix my shade, you want to make sure that that brush is as clean as possible, wiping it on the placemat, making sure there's no leftovers in case somebody else used it for a tint. So now I'm going to take a big old scoop of orange, and you're going to notice there's barely any black in here. That's because this color will change dramatically. Notice that a shade of orange actually becomes a brown. Adding those dabs of color right on top. So I'm going to keep working around using my yellow, green, blue, and violet. small paint strokes. Don't forget to go over those tertiary colors a little bit too. So you can see how I've added little dabs of color right on top. I made a tint of yellow, which looks really, really light, a tint of pink or magenta, and a tint of blue. And even if you use regular red, you would still get a pink for that tint. I made a shade of orange, which was pretty dark, so it made a brown, a shade of green, and a shade of the purple or violet. And as this dries, you'll see the colors might blend in a little bit more or might stand out a little more. It just depends on the color that you had mixed. So make sure that you can still see the colors underneath. You don't want to completely cover them, just little dabs of color right on top, and they kind of fill in like pizza toppings. So starting at that center, spreading them out, going all the way out to your edges. So not too many dabs of color, but just enough to add some of those tints and shades right on top of your color wheel.